this is where I really just want to review everything and have a panel discussion. We're going to have this panel discussion Friday of next week. I believe it's the 26th. Let me look at a calendar again. Look how ill prepared I am, man. I mean, this is not a live video, but I'm not going to edit it too much because there's not much that needs to be said, in my opinion. But what is spoken about, make sure I'm looking at a 2003 calendar. Yeah, the 26th. The 26th, we're going to go 5 p.m. Probably be running, it's probably like when other people are airing, but I want to have a live discussion. I'm going to invite a bunch of people through this video. I'm probably going to invite G. Lowry, probably a few other people. And what I want to do is just to get larger feedback on my feedback, because I think what this California task force showed is I think they did some things right and they did some things wrong. And I just want to be fair in reviewing this. And I want a little bit more, hold on, I'm cooking. I want some more opinions because I've been pretty forward thinking on this channel. One sec. Remember, this was a channel that nominated Yvette Carnell to lead a reparations movement before there ever was an ADOS. And if you remember, you can go back to early 2018, I was explaining how reparations is affordable and how it's possible politically. And back when I was doing it, I didn't have much support like I do now. And I won't even say it's support because it's not really people supporting me. It's leverage because it's more popular in the media. Reparations is polling more favorable than it ever has. And you didn't have people asking for big money. So what I was doing was I was like, let's ask for as little as possible that we can actually do. It was like $4.5 trillion. And there were other means that would make up for that in a plan to close the racial wealth gap. Now, if I had a reparations movement, it would have been more money. And if I had known just how incompetent the people that I would have thought would have been better suited to making up the difference, like the Pan-Africanists, the do-for-selfers, if I knew how incompetent and samboic they were, I would have said, no, we have to do this like purely off reparations. It would have been a different discussion because I have not seen this, and I'll invite like at least Camjiverse or even Brother Reggie. I want to invite some people to represent Pan-Africanism, and I'm going to tell them straight up that you guys have failed. You aren't doing it because reparations, whether it be like Namibia or CARICOM or anywhere, it's a local thing. And to me, it's like, are you helping or hurting? And I don't see how they're helping, really. And what they're revealing is, I don't think they have a role that offers anything to make up for it. And the reason why I say that is because so much of it is just kind of like an escapism where it's like the novelty of not being a Christian or a Muslim is about the only thing that they offer. But I could be wrong, so I want to invite some of them to sound off. Now, the way I review this this series of hearings, this panel, is they did about two things right and everything else wrong. So let's talk about what they did right first. And look, I might miss some things because I'm not going to outline this and sit through and, it's not, I'm cooking some eggs and whatnot. I may miss some things, but on a very simple level, what they did right is they made it so the requirements are people who descend from slavery. They did an okay job. I wish they would have marketed it better, but they did a good job of connecting the cost of being black and descending from slavery. I still think there's some problems in it, but they did a good job of tallying it up and coming with a number, making cash recommendations, and this cash that they recommended would do what you want reparations to do, what you need reparations to do. Tasty. And that's break the caste system. Because, and that's the only efficient way. So when you hear people like Clyburn talking about reparations can't be cash and over my dead body, well, his old ass is fitting to die soon anyway. But when you hear him acting all proud and grump, understand it's because Clyburn is an anti-black racist. You would not hear him say that to other people. He signed reparations in the form of cash for Native Americans. So he knows that that's BS. But you don't have a lot of leverage when you're dealing with an anti-black racist. You might as well have a Klansman in power. But what they did right is, if this were to have passed and California was doing it, it would be a huge sea change. And it would just debunk all the crazy stuff that the right-wingers say. Because that type of money in the ghetto, red line, as I call it too, would increase marriages, would decrease crime, would increase business opportunities, it would just be, oh, why didn't we do this before? And then like everywhere would be saying, hey, yo, Uncle Sam, you helped, because this only would work if California helped. So people would copy California. They would try to get some reparations funding to do in their state what California did for theirs. And that's really the fact that they offered a great solution, that they offered a fitting solution. And the criteria was that you had to be a descendant of slavery. So you could have stupid ass Leo Terrell on Piers Morgan talking about, well, what about Kamala Harris? And Leo Terrell is just another anti-black racist Sambo. And like you have this sort of Sambo cycle based on poverty, just the wealth gap. Because like you can take somebody like Leo Terrell, who was supposedly a civil rights dude, and pay him to Sambo for you against reparationists. That's what Piers Morgan did. So And then Pierce Morgan, this dude was talking about Vikings and like, was it Vikings and Romans? So if somebody is talking like deflecting like this, the whole discussion was about stuff that happened after slavery. Like the reparations was for stuff that happened after slavery. And this fool Pierce Morgan is talking about Vikings and some goddamn Romans. See, there isn't like good arguments against reparations. So they start to use basically Sambose that they typically got from somebody like Thomas Sowell. And Sambose is not, it's just like what you want to hear if you're white and racist. It's not, like Sambos don't have a real anti-reparations argument. They did everything else wrong. I mean, kicking Tone off the panel was just idiotic. I can't name anybody who better contextualizes the poverty of this foundational Black American. And it also showed like anybody that's really going to be honest about what's moving the reparations discussion knows it's coming from ADOS. So you don't, like, if you have any influence, and they had influence on who's there, you keep Tone. He's one of the few people that has constantly off his head memorized the numbers in terms of wealth data. He's one of the people that would have been on your side when it comes to grounding the discussion in people who descend from slavery, obviously. And it showed, like, regardless of what issues you might have had with Tone or Yvette, if you're trying to win, you can't like choose cliquishness over competence. And that would have been one more vote to keep things straight, because somehow you guys let it get out of hand. Like, there is no way these hearings should have had crazy ass Moors talking about gold and silver bullion, threatening to summon a god to destroy America if it doesn't do reparations. And you should not have people yelling at Tariq to put respect on their name and yelling about how they're going to make history and wanting to box with the dude. No. Like, if you kick somebody who's serious off, that's one less vote that would have prevented inviting people like that. Like, you had that one hearing where you had a Hebrew Israelite woman, a straight up dude dressed like a pimp, and like some mulatto dude who was singing and rapping. And I'm wondering, like, how much of just trying to be cliquish instead of competent led to this. You know, because if you have insurgents who just want chaos and just want to invite people off the street, and then all of a sudden you get people who seem like they're paid agitators of some sort, And then you have Tariq Nasheed. He's given a good speech, and it's only 2 minutes. Like, you finally have somebody who's sounding competent, and you have a 2 minute window for him to talk. I mean, I don't know what the hell. Who was running this? And you get one dude who, I mean, it's not like you didn't have people. And if you stop being cliquish, forget all that. Like, you had a reparations hearing in Atlanta. 90% of the people there were ADOS. Like, ADOS org. Yvette was there, and funny, she talks about Tariq being dressed like a pimp. Yvette was dressed like a mob boss. And then she was sitting up front, laid back, relaxed, like a Don. For real. Don Corleone. So, but then when she actually spoke, you could see like you would rather have that at your hearing than crazy ass Moors talking about gold and silver bullion. And they had, even though it was like 90% ADOS repping, they had somebody who said that they were from Friedman. It was a woman. And what's funny is like they also had somebody who said they were FBA. It said that they got smoked for Friedman. Like the FBA dude was beefing with Friedman. And then like the lady who said that she represented Friedman was so like sweet and loving that she's like, please don't have any smoke for me. And the FBA dude was like cool with her after that. Like she charmed him. So the whole hearing in Atlanta was how you're supposed to have the goddamn hearings, period, in California. And I'm not saying like California wasn't dealing with parameters, but so was the hearing in Atlanta, because both California and Atlanta had the same kind of misdirection Democratic loyalists who were playing a role in it. But whatever happened is ADOS still was there in big numbers with them. There was no beefing with the one FBA dude or the Friedman woman. And like part of it is, and this is where I want to get people's feedback, is if I'm trying to make an argument for reparations, and you got to cover the costs. And if you're going to have any Friedman people there, which they did at one point in some of the hearings, then where is Logic, who is one of the people that breaks down the way reparations is affordable? Like, go with your most competent people. Don't play the whole cliquish thing, because then what will happen is that you reject somebody like Tone. You aren't trying to get someone like Logic who can cover how this is paid for. And to be real, to cut it short, another problem was there was no real plan to pay for this, because the people who, like the ADOS people or Logic, or like if you were going to have people from the former Actify Press, current Reset Race channel, if you're going to have people like that, then they're gonna be straight up that California can't afford reparations right, because they came out with reparations right in terms of policy, and it has to be money. To do it any other way would be it's almost like, okay, well, let's give black people in the value of 20 trillion, and then they'll have them hock it and and swap it out, make money off it or whatever. It's like, let's give them 20 trillion in weight. Let's give them 20 trillion in land, and then they can like rent it out to people for 40 trillion or whatever. It's not efficient. It's just like, let's just go from the Fed. And the thing is, California is not the Fed. So when you're saying, well, California has to pay like almost $1 trillion or 900 billion, I don't remember how much it was. I think it was 900 billion. Maybe it was over $1 trillion. That is a hell of a burden for California, because unlike the Fed, California only gets their money from taxes or whatever kickdowns they get from the Fed, but then they have to then go to the federal government and request it based on some national emergency type situations, which that should have been your angle all along, is that you have people who already descend from slavery and Jim Crow, different forms of economic apartheid, terrorism, and neo-slavery coming to California. And now we're racist and, we're trying to pay for our racism. We can't afford to pay for it. We're already in state debt. What are you going to do for us, Biden? That should have been the angle. And now I disagree with Yvette when she talks about how, like, the governor, God, I'm forgetting this dude's name. I say it all the time. Gavin Newsom. It does show that he didn't directly support this, and he had time to make a great argument. And he didn't. He had time to make a nuanced argument and say, hey, I support this on principle because of blah, 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 blah. Easiest argument in the history of politics, blah, 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 blah. But Joe Biden, we're going to have a talk with him because of how we afford this. This discussion was lacking until all of a sudden Gavin Newsom speaks and he's not in favor of checks. And that's the thing. It's not completely lacking, but it has to be from the start, along with the math, why this doesn't make any sense to be done any other way. And because you can't then afford it, where are you, White House, in this situation? And these questions aren't being asked. They weren't being asked. And now you have the reaction to Gavin Newsom, and he's kind of playing it on the fence. You're not pulling them in the direction of cash. If anything, because the reparations hearings were so sloppy, and I disagree to the extent that Yvette goes, but you kind of poison pilled it. And you didn't have to. Because even the guy that went on Pierce Morgan, like, the only problem with him is, like, this should have been stuff that everybody knew ahead of time. And it didn't, boy, and like, who already didn't know that Pierce Morgan was a racist, but still. Vikings, Romans. I don't even know, like, if is American his second nationality? Like, I if somebody would have said that, my response would have been, Viking, are you playing like a strategy war game or something? What people are you talking about? And the crazy thing was, this was all about stuff that people lived through, even though it was grounded in slavery, because that was one of the that was the criteria to be eligible for the reparations package. It was about how long you lived in California and do you descend from slavery. I feel you. That worked. I mean, it's no coincidence it was Adolf stuff that worked. And this whole cliquish stuff, and then the cliquish stuff backfires, and it's like, put some respect on my name and all this stuff on Tariq. And I didn't see what Tariq did. Like, Tariq was just showed up there, had a bunch of security, talked for 2 minutes, and now people were yelling at him over some jealousy nonsense, childish jealousy nonsense. And now people are talking about Yvette is gloating because it failed. And instead of, like, listening to what she's saying, because Yvette said that even if the crazy ass abos, people who say that they're Aboriginal, and the slave trade was in reverse. Even if the Dane Calloway people were to somehow get reparations, she wouldn't try to break it up. She was like, okay, now that you got your reparations, donate to Adolph's Foundation. She is not trying to mess this up. The reality is the only thing that was really good came with a problem. How do you pay for it? And then you're making it somewhat of a poison pill because you're having little brawls and you're inviting clowns to the discussion. It was a clown show. How you have a Hebrew, a pimp? I mean, look, you can talk to Yvette dressed up like a mob boss. Okay, she dressed up like a mob boss. But when she spoke, it spoke for itself. And everything was cool when Tariq was speaking for 2 minutes. Like, how is it you ignore all the issues you might have with Tariq? You get him, but you only get him for 2 minutes. He's excellent for 2 minutes. I'm like, if you're going to ignore all the issues you have, and whoever this individual was and yelling, put respect on my name, if you're going to ignore all of that and you're going to get something good out of him, then milk it for longer than 2 minutes. So those are my issues with it. I probably left some stuff out. But now I'm going to let's just get to the solution. Where do we go from here? I think where you go from here, it's your only leverage, really, now, is black people are not supporting Biden and he's hemorrhaging and it's not going to change. It's not going to change because everywhere Democrats are continuing to screw black people. They're continuing to treat them like a captured electorate. And this is already after Trump won because white men decreased on him. That was what really happened. It wasn't like Trump got a greater percentage of the black vote. Actually, he did, but it wasn't like that was the thing that made a difference. Yeah, Trump did, I think, better with black people and all that, but it was slight. The big shift and why Trump lost, when you run the numbers and get out of the whole feelings and the rigged election, because I got my issue with the Democrats. I don't think they needed to rig the election because Trump's poll numbers were dropping amongst white men. They dropped to the point of no return. Trump didn't reach out for the black vote. Had he reached out for the black vote and flipped it just a little bit, which would have took reparations, but he'd be in office. And that's what it is right now. The Latin and Asian vote is still split enough to the point where a adamant voting bloc of 17 to 15% of our population, whatever you say it is, an adamant bloc that goes 80% yay or nay, the moment that voting bloc drops 30%, you're not going to win swing states. And it's worse than dropping, because the swing states where they would win, that's where it seems like he's struggling the most. New York. Actually, New York is not a swing state. I was thinking more like Illinois. But he's struggling in places like New York. I don't understand black New Yorkers. I know black people are leaving New York, but Adams is horrible. And that new mayor of Chicago, you were better off with Lightfoot. They're you're recycling Sambo. And I don't understand. I think it was North Carolina where they had, I think he was was it lieutenant governor, that black dude that said that black people need to pay reparations. It's so many new Sambos, I forget their names. How do you not recall him? That needs to be recallable. I don't understand how you've let someone like Clyburn get so comfortable to where he can say hell no to cash reparations. So there still is a problem of idiocy amongst black voters and voters in general. The American voter is a fool. I don't care what race they are. But black voters are still in that category of the fool. But the only leverage you have is that with Biden's approval with black people dropping, the one thing that would make a lot of people vote for him is if, and look, Biden's a senile idiot and he's an anti-black racist at his heart. But Gavin Newsom could make the argument that, hey, this should be done, but for the fact that we can't afford it, what are you going to do about it, Joe Biden, with the numbers, with the Fed? And Biden could get some economists who could explain why it won't drive inflation, kick some money down to California, reparations done right, everything shifts in a way, get out. Everything shifts in a way that debunks like this nonsense that comes from the Thomas Sowell disciples. Black marriage goes up, businesses go up, unemployment goes down. All of this would happen, and you'd have if that type of money went down in California, it would bleed out of California. I'm telling you right now, that type of money would link the whole West Coast with black neighborhoods that are not looking all redline-ish anymore. These would be some different types of black neighborhoods because California already has one of the wealthiest black neighborhoods in the world. It has a couple unicorn communities. And you put that type of money amongst black unicorns? Ooh, man. And they know it. Oh, you put that type of money, sit back five years, and then look at the marriage rates, look at the crime rates, look at unemployment, look at how that wealth is still circulating, look at how that wealth is still in banks. And now it sets a standard because they didn't just aim for, that was the best thing about this whole commission by far, is they put a real solution out there. And the best thing that we got going for us is Gavin Newsom might just get a call from Biden and say, hey, you might have, I'm going to kick down, but you got to make the argument. Because Biden ain't, and we have to make this argument to Biden. It can't just be Marianne Williamson. And I'd like to talk about her too. But that more with the group, because and people have replayed the argument she had with Marcel. I think Marcel was correct. I just think when you're right, you don't have to keep throwing it at look, I did the numbers. I can cite the source. I think it was only I forgot. I think he said $12 million. The U.S. did $12 million to Holocaust survivors. That's still $12 million, and you're wrong, Marianne. Don't get in your feelings and start accusing them of hating on Jewish people. That's ridiculous. So that's where my stance is there. But at the same time, you have leverage with Marianne Williamson that you don't have with Biden. Because at least you can then say, hey, Marianne, what are you doing? If this is where you got to resolve the thing, even if you're right. Just say, look, I believe I'm right. You might think I have an issue with Jews. Whatever. You can look it up and apologize to me if you find that I'm right. Whatever. Let's move the discussion to how do you help California pay for this? Marianne, because you're in favor of reparations. This closes the racial wealth gap along much of the West Coast, maybe the entire West Coast. Now, Oregon, after it barred black people from even being in there, and where I'm at, even though I've lived in California and I got people there, where I'm at, Washington State was redlined too. You can make the case all up and down the West Coast and have the West Coast reparationized to the point where the rest of the country is like, whoa, this worked. This worked. You zeroed out black homelessness. You've increased black marriage. You've decreased crime. How can I be down? This would not, because it really, if you're splitting it with the state and the federal government and you're just doing one state, that ain't a lot of money for the feds. The feds could kick down $500 billion and run a surplus at the same time. I mean, you could make some cuts here, deport some of these illegal immigrants. And if you have a problem with deporting them, because of the way inflation works, where it doesn't really hit us unless it's in us, you could give them a little bit of money. Here's a parting gift. Go about your way. Take this money. Start a business where you're at. Or do that. But there's no point in even having them in America if it's like in some places $7,000 a month to it's silly. I think when it comes to immigration, this country is just an idiot, but it's an idiot grounded in let's replace the working class that used to be slaves. Can't tell me different, because like every time I trace back, and like I'm seeing the same thing whenever I look back. So that's it. That's where we're at. And I think really the only solution is it's better to get hey, Marianne, what do you do about California? Okay, good enough answer. Vote for her. Or, hey, Biden, what do you do? This is what we need. Okay, answer is not appropriate. Let them lose. And take the same question to Ron DeSantis. Hey, Ron DeSantis, you're very racist. You're okay. You're sponsoring a frail homeless man getting coup de grace just because he's black. You're in favor of teaching Asian history, not in favor of teaching black history. You scream anti-black racist. We have a feeling how you feel about this, but we want to get you on paper because you know what? We think the Democrats are racist too. So, since we kind of like your position on immigration, what do you do about California if you're president? Can you cut them like $500 billion because they're dealing with a national emergency? What do you do? Okay, you get the answer. You get all the answers. You hit up Trump. You could call it the Platinum Plan. How do you help California pay? How do you lead? Do you want the black vote? I don't think most Republicans do, but you might. You might be different. Maybe you're a Lincoln Republican. Maybe you're a 40 acres Republican. How do you feel? Okay. You have to get them all on paper on California, because if anybody says, hey, you know what? I agree. We need to fund this. Vote for them overwhelmingly. That's where I stand. I think that's your only leverage, and it's better than what you've had in the past, but God damn, did you fumble this? Whoa, you fumbled this all the way up and down the field. You were fumbling. And like I said, I'll say it again. I'll end it with this. The only leverage you now have is that your solution is better than anything the Democratic Party has ever come with in history of the nation when it comes to black people. And if it's rejected by them, you already have polls saying that they're going, like, what the polls are saying is this is how the Democrats can save themselves with black people. And what the polls are also saying is The Republicans have milked the racist vote dry. When you have Ron DeSantis donating money to someone who killed a delirious homeless man who was standing there muttering to himself, if you see the video of Jordan Neely, he's not yelling at people in their face. Now you could say, well, that video wasn't the same period. Until I see something else, I'm not buying what you're selling. I'm not buying this whole story, because if that dude would have got buck on me, I'm not going to sneak up from behind him. I'm just going to punch him in the face, sock him in the ribs. Skinny old man. I'm old based on his physicality. Being homeless, starving. This dude was hungry to the point of deliriousness. And to sneak up and choke him to death, and that is what you're trying to do to get votes to be a president? Same with Ramaswamy. You've donated to him too. You can't milk the racist vote any more than that. So now it's like, well, do you want the black vote? Since you can't out racist the Republicans. I mean, you kind of can on the low. I mean, if a Biden White House and a DeSantis White House produces the same thing, except for maybe less illegal immigrants gentrifying black neighborhoods, then you're pretty much the same. I'm just saying, like, I'm not moved to the point where it's like, okay, we need one more person who's not a balls in hand racist on the Supreme Court. I mean, at this point, you really got to start making the argument. It's the easiest argument in the history of politics. And if the Democrats can't make it, if they can't say what they're going to do for California to pay for this emergency, while they're already putting tens and hundreds of billions to deal with illegal immigrants that they're choosing to bring in, because you saw what happened when they choose not to bring them in with the Haitians, then you can't vote for this. And the fact that these poll numbers are already showing what they're showing, it means that you might not be far from reparations. I think at the end of the day, and I'm not saying this to be pessimistic, but Biden has a history of letting black people down that's so clear that I think if you give him a chance, he's going to screw you. He will never be in favor of cash reparations. The sooner God takes him from this planet, the better for us. We should try to get Williamson in, provided you ask her that question and you get a real answer. And if you don't, treat her like Biden. If you do, then you should write her in overwhelmingly. And if it means the vote is split because the Democrats didn't want to have a real primary and they lose, that is a good thing. They deserve to lose. They're not bringing anything to the table. And now they have an opportunity to make the easiest argument in political history while they're already making arguments that are less popular. So this is where you're at. Again, I want to have this discussion with more people on, I think it'll be the 26th. I'm going to look back at the calendar to make sure. Yeah, the 26th. So 26th Friday. Let's do it. Later.